Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Excel College Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Chambers.
And I'm Isaiah Schmidt.
And I'm Cassadie Solis.
Hey, wait, we're supposed to introduce you.
You looked at me.
Oh, that's true. Okay. She's been here so many times, she feels like a host, essentially. Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, you've been here 4 or 5 times now.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah. Today we're talking about the literature module.
Yeah.
And so we were just
Great.
talking about classic literature, like T-Pain before this. And
Guess some other ones you were spitting out.
yeah, Marcus Morris.
Marcus Morris.
Yeah, he's like in the, oh gosh.
You know, our audience is like largely classical and
Yeah.
homeschool. I mean,
Oh, my first thought was Gen Z.
Gen Z. Who are some classic Gen Z literary legends from Gen Z or to Gen Z?
I have only sarcastic responses going through
Yeah.
my head.
Well, anyways, so we should move on. So, today we're going to be talking about the literature module.
Mm-hmm.
Full disclosure, we are recording this in December. That's why the house is decorated Christmas-wise. Shout out to Austin and Laura for letting us use
I don't think
their
you can
house. I don't
see
think you can actually see
anything.
the Christmas
background's
here.
probably exactly the same.
Yeah.
Seems like Christmas starts here.
Yeah.
Moves that way.
But so we're actually 2 months out from the literature module right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Plus the art trip.
Plus the art trip. So I don't know. It's probably okay if we mingle a little of the art trip into here on accident.
I feel like it blends anyway towards the end too.
Which the whole core does.
Like
anyways.
kind of.
2 months
kind of
out
the
being
point.
2 months in a rearview mirror.
Yeah.
2 months
Previous.
from. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, and we're going on Christmas break soon. So all the students are gone right now as we're recording this, or most of them.
Yep.
Yeah. What are you doing for Christmas?
Well, staying here. Well, hopefully. Let's see. This is our first Christmas together since Rochelle and I got married.
Nice.
So we'll probably spend Christmas Day here, and then we're doing 4 or 5 days up in northern Indiana with their
nice.
family.
Sweet.
Indiana
Doing some snow.
land.
Yeah, hopefully.
Awesome.
We're heading up there right when it gets really cold here.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's gonna get really cold.
will it be
Yeah.
colder up there than it is here?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh,
What are you doing for Christmas?
I'm going to Texas for a week.
Tejas.
Tejas. We leave tomorrow, and then we'll be back for New Year's.
Do you guys do any fun like family Christmas traditions? Like, do you do like Texas tacos for Christmas or like?
We usually have barbacoa
Really?
Christmas morning.
man.
What is that?
Yeah. You don't know what barbacoa is?
No, I've never heard that word
I have
before.
never. This has never happened to me. It's
Really?
cow cheek.
Cow-
It's the
That's
meat
good.
from the cheek of a cow.
Very fatty.
Can be. It's not
Huh.
supposed to be.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's tasty.
Wow.
Yeah.
Barbacoa.
It's so good.
I
The meat
think
is so tender.
Doesn't Chipotle do a barbacoa?
No way.
I don't eat at Chipotle. What do you think I am?
I love Chipotle. Okay, I'm gonna give a tip to our listeners out there, all hundreds of you or dozens. But at Chipotle, don't make fun of me. But if you go as a family, which my wife and I do, you can order one meal and get double sides because they let you do that, and order an extra tortilla, and it's enough for 2 people. It's a good meal
For the price of one?
for the price of one. Yeah, it's $9, and they're glad to do it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone has a takeaway from this episode,
Chipotle.
there's the bottom.
There's the bottom. Start there. Okay. All right. Well, can I at least share what we're doing for Christmas?
Yeah, do it.
So Evan, my son, is 2.5 years old, and he loves trains.
Nice.
So we're taking him on the Great Smoky Mountain Express.
No
Which is like an hour and a
way.
half into the mountains, past like these gorgeous lakes, and then into like this little mountain town.
That's amazing.
And then an hour and a half back. It's gonna be amazing.
That's so
Hanging out with my
sweet.
parents.
Where do you
Yeah.
start at?
You start in Bryson City.
Huh, Tennessee?
Oh.
Yeah, and then go into Dillsboro.
Wait,
North
Bryson
Carolina.
City's in Tennessee.
I think it's North Carolina. Yeah, I think
Oh,
it's
it's
North
North
Carolina.
Carolina.
Yeah. Then you go into Dillsboro,
Wow.
and then back. That's gonna be awesome.
Huh.
Dang.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then we're gonna do a scavenger hunt, which Isaiah's helping with.
A scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
For their presents?
Well, it's
No.
for like to make memories because we don't
Yeah.
want to just
Oh,
like
oh,
make
oh.
Christmas all about presents.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Christmas is all about presents.
presents, right?
CE.
Oh, nice.
Presents.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we're trying to do something as a family where it's like a memory thing.
Yeah.
not
That's
just
good.
A gift thing. Yeah,
That's so good.
yeah.
Did you ever find him a model train?
I did. A
You
little model train
did?
set. Yeah,
Cool.
Dang.
yeah, yeah,
That'll be awesome.
yeah. I'm ashamed to say, but I got on Amazon.
I'm going to get him a train
That's
whistle.
fine.
I'm going to get him 20 train whistles and hide them
Yes.
all around the house.
Yes.
Oh.
So you can never actually confiscate all of them.
That would be awesome.
Oh, no.
I don't care. Charity,
Charity will
will
care.
hard, but,
Gosh.
He's what, 3 now?
he's
Yeah.
almost 3.
Almost
in
3.
February.
Perfect age to start getting
February.
whistles.
Yeah. Yes.
For uncles, you know,
Exactly.
to start getting
For uncles to
whistles.
start getting
And then run out of the house as
Yeah.
soon as they drop it off.
Yeah. Yeah, Jesse's almost a year.
Wow.
It's crazy.
In March.
My house is hectic. Yeah.
Your house is very full.
Yes. It's fun. Well,
Cool.
yeah. So that's where we're at. Hope you guys are all doing well.
Yeah.
Oh, and another update for you guys actually. So Cass just added a bunch of new features to our website actually. So you can now find all these podcasts and our YouTube videos of the podcast on the website actually.
On our media page.
On our media page.
Cool.
And there's a bunch of student blogs up, and there's one about Italy coming soon. So good things on the website.
Great things on
Our
the
Instagram
website.
hit 500 followers.
Let's go.
Wow.
Big time.
We're up there.
Yeah. But seriously, if you don't follow us on Instagram, you should check out all the Italy reels.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were.
It's a good place to figure out what life actually looks like here at Excel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
When you're in Italy. Oh, you
In
talk about
Italy.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Literature.
Literature
Yeah.
Literature.
Okay. Literature is module number 11.
of 12.
Wow,
12.
that's so weird that we're done.
Yeah. So it's the end, almost the end of the core.
Almost the end.
Why do we study literature in the core?
Yeah, so the whole core kind of does this funnel thing, and you start really big and up here, and then you go through this funnel where you go from big abstract, like philosophical concepts, and you bring it kind of back down to earth. You do bring it back down to earth, literally, through the sciences like mathematics, biology, physics, all of those. And then you get kind of actually a little bit broad with practicals, and you go into things like anthropology, sociology, government, and you get way more specific of like, okay, how do these like theological concepts from way back in January connect to things like who do I vote for? And like, what does it matter what my family is like? Or like, what does it matter what I read or if I read, like that whole thing. What does it matter in the media sphere of life and things like that? What does it matter if I pay my taxes or not?
Yeah.
That's fun.
I love the image you used of a funnel coming down, because we normally say it like goes from macro into micro, but like universal and then down. But I love that funnel image. That's amazing. Yeah.
That's what's made it like click in my head of like, oh, okay, so this is all literally just like everything affects everything. So like it all just drips down and feeds into one another, and then you get specific with how it affects your day-to-day life.
Yeah, that's sick.
Yeah. So literature, literature is one way that you can find like the expression of humanity, in even like God is a creator, and literature is one way that we create. Therefore, it's worth studying. Like all of that, Same thing with art. Like, God is an artist. God clearly he created so many different beautiful things. So therefore, beauty has value, and it's worth studying. So, yeah. There is a C.S. Lewis quote that I'm going to have to pull up on my phone because it's way too long for me to memorize. But it's in the intro of our syllabus and kind of explains like why literature, why is it important, why does it add value to our like soul life, like our spirit, how does it nourish our spirit, how does it nourish our mind. So I'm going to read that.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Read it.
Yeah, so it says, we study literature as a way to experience other worlds. In the words of C.S. Lewis, we seek an enlargement of our being. We want to be more than ourselves. Each of us, by nature, sees the whole world from one point of view with a perspective and a selectiveness peculiar to himself. We want to see with other eyes, to imagine with other imaginations, to feel with other hearts, as well as with our own.
Wow.
We demand windows. This, so far as I can see, is the specific value of good literature.
Wow.
It admits us to experiences other than our own. My own eyes are not enough for me. I will see through those of others.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That got me. I was like, wow.
That's amazing.
Dang.
That's a great quote.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's funny you actually mentioned that quote, because I was actually just wrestling the other day with the idea of finiteness. I know it's just. 'Cause I'm so brilliant. That's wrestling.
Classic.
No, I couldn't sleep, so I was just thinking about finiteness. No, but like Isaiah and I talked about this, I think, in the very first podcast we ever did, actually. It was when we were in
Whoa.
Dixon shooting in that room up there.
Wow.
What?
The thought of reason and revelation and how reason alone is not enough, but you also need revelation.
Yes.
But I think it's because because reason, I need to be able to discern like what is the things that are coming at me, like what is true. Mm-hmm. But I can literally only take in so much, and I need revelation in order to get to truth.
Yeah.
And just that, like, it was honestly like a resignation of like, wow, like, because there's just this fear of like, what do I not know?
Yeah. Ooh.
Like even in the core, like we read a ton. We read a ton. And there's a ton that we don't read.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people graduate thinking like, oh, like I know all there
I'm
is to
done.
know about all
Yeah.
things. It's like, there's a lot.
I've read all the greats, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, you're just beginning.
Yeah, and we use
Yeah.
the terms great books, right? But there's really, it's just beginning. And like I could spend 1,000,000 years and not read all the literature in the world.
It's awesome.
Jeez.
Not look through all the windows.
Yeah. See with other perspectives.
Yeah.
I saw an amazing graphic recently that I've shared this with a couple people. And it's just kind of eye-opening. It was 2 circles. It's a large circle and a small circle inside of that large circle. And the small circle inside represents how much we know. And then, or maybe just you on your own personal journey, how much I personally know. Mm-hmm. And then the circle outside of that small circle is how much you don't know, the unknown. And then he just said, as your knowledge increases, it's fair to say that circle also gets bigger. But then so does the perimeter.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So does your realization that, oh, wow. Because as
Yeah.
that circle increases in diameter, you start to realize it's actually touching more of the things that you don't know. And your knowledge of how much I don't know increases.
Jeez.
in like a correlation with the things that you do know.
Gosh.
As your knowledge increases, so does your knowledge of the things that you don't know increase.
That is so
if,
interesting.
If it's like an honest look at it.
Wow.
That reminds me, we were asked in actually one of our final classes, we were talking about our virtues. And we were asked, like, where did we think we were at when we came to the school, and how have we grown since then? And that was one thing I realized was, like, I came here thinking I was, like, decently healthy and, like, decently humble and, like, all this stuff, but humble enough to know that I still needed, like... Still was missing this aspect of community that I was hungry for, which is one of the main reasons I came here. And when I got here and actually started growing and started pressing into things, and into community and into relationship with people, I realized how much more of those things that I needed, and how...
Dang.
Like, I was okay, I was fine, but I actually wasn't as healthy as I thought I was. I actually was in need of more humility, and I was, like, the depth of my hunger for things only grew even as it was getting, like, fed.
Wow.
And it was, like, because knowledge and realization increased, so did the realization that of the need, increased.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think there's this... this mantra of like knowledge is power, you know?
Ooh, yeah.
And like, so I was encouraged as a kid, like read all you can, get all the perspective that you can, which I still think is a good thing. And I still encourage you to do. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
But there was this thing of like, I can get to the point where I can prove X or I can prove Y, and I know all the things, and then I'll be in control. Essentially, I'll know how to. And the realization hit me. It was like, I don't. And there's a lot that I don't know, or that I won't know, and that I'm not going to know until eternity.
Yeah.
And I'll have eternity to discover, and still I'm just a drop
Still
in the big
won't.
bucket. And just like, honestly, like a peaceful resignation of like, it's okay. I don't know, because you ever had that drive, like, I just have to know.
Yeah.
Like, I just have to. I remember when I was in college, like wrestling with my faith. I read everything because I was like, I have to know. I have to know.
Yeah.
What am I missing? I have to know. And then, like, I eventually just came to this piece of like,
I won't.
I won't. And I am as a finite human, I am dependent on revelation.
Oof.
I'm
Yeah.
dependent on outside of myself to feed me in order for me to like come to truth. And that's scary because I can't control it.
Yeah. That is so good.
I was talking with a student recently about just even Andrew Sherman, amazing teacher, was just here recently over the Christmas season, and shared, just so much. Obviously, his all teams are just chock full. Mm-hmm. But every time he comes, there's maybe one statement or one phrase that'll jump out to me. Mm-hmm. And this year he just said, and it might even be a scripture quote, but he just said, "Here I am, your servant who hears." Mm-hmm. And I was just like, that statement alone. There was this a friend who's kind of struggling with like, do I hear God? Maybe I don't hear God. How do I hear God? Any of these things. And I was like, what about if you start from, "Here I am, your servant who hears." Shoot. And that alone is like that's a faith statement right there. It's not even a question. It's like, I'm going to start from, "Here I am, your servant who hears." I do hear. I don't doubt that I hear. Yeah. And then, you take that leap of faith, and then the next step comes, and the next step comes, and the next step comes. And that, just speaking, how that relates to your journey of knowledge and your journey of faith, and the things that you can come through logical conclusions, and the things that can't be reached through logical conclusions that just come on faith. Yeah. And sometimes you have to start with faith. I think that's the big part of philosophy. It's like, it does start with faith. If we're honest, it starts with a faith declaration, and then you can build, and there's a strange interplay between reason and revelation, and you can't have one without the other. And
Dang. That's good.
Yeah.
I think that's really good.
Yeah. So, but the literature module.
Literature. We
read a couple pieces. I think we did like 5 or 6 pieces throughout the module. Some poems, some sonnets, a novel, and I think there was one other form.
Some literary nonfiction.
Yeah. We did some Shakespearean sonnets. We did
Virginia Woolf. No, we didn't do songs. We read A Remove One's Own by Virginia Woolf.
Yeah. Did you like that?
It was good. It was very interesting to do, I don't think I've ever read creative or literary nonfiction before that. Mm-hmm. And so to know that it was nonfiction with fictitious
Wait, what do you mean? What is literary
characters?
nonfiction? What is that?
Yeah, so it's literally like a persuasive or informative story that the events and the points are true, but there could be some imaginative or created characters or scenes that are based off of real things to get to a real point, but weren't necessarily.
Gotcha.
Or everything is real, but it's written as a story and relies on story to persuade an audience.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. It was very interesting.
Yeah. I think I read a World War II novel that was about events that happened in World War II, but they were made up characters that were experiencing the events.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you.
And there's what I struggled with too was it feels like, at least for me, there's a fine line between literary nonfiction and historical fiction of based on true events. Yeah, I know. It's still, it's very, it was confusing at first, for sure. Cause I was like, well, this has real events in it, but everything leading up to those real events was fiction.
Gotcha.
And so therefore it's more so fiction versus Virginia Woolf's story was literally she was on a walk. It was literally mainly just her journey on this college campus back to her home, and she was just on a walk. It was her real life, and encountered people that are real, but maybe not necessarily the way she actually encountered them. She kind of maneuvered things.
Okay.
I think, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, to make a point of women in fiction. Yeah.
Okay. Why do y'all read her? Or why do we read her?
It's a good question.
I know.
For me, it was more, I think some people read it for what it was actually talking about, and it was actually talking about women in fiction and all of that. But for me, it took me the whole time reading it to really start to understand literary nonfiction, just because, I don't know, it was a very weird concept for my mind. I was like, is this fiction or not? But yeah.
It's one of the longest in the core. It's a 45-page reading.
Yeah.
It's really long.
Yeah, wow. It was super long.
I asked myself the same question this year, picking it up. I'm like, why do we insist on this reading?
Yeah.
Maybe 5 pages into it. And then I get done with it and I'm like, that's a good one.
Dang.
For real.
What was your
I mean, because it's like, what's the point? Like, what's the argument that we're getting at? I don't see how it fits in the flow of the core. And then I facilitated a day where we were discussing it. And I like started off, I just said, hey, I know we're about halfway through the reading. If you're listening to, because I'd heard a couple students say like, hey, there's a YouTube video and it's super long, but if you throw it on ×2 on YouTube, you can get through it really quick. And I was like, this is different. Things have changed. We're not in biology. We're not in, we're not in anthropology, sociology, a more technical reading that maybe it's about like, with logic, you can 2 points come together and you're like, oh, I understand that. And then I can move on. Yeah. It's like, this is actually about like, this is a more poetic or this is a more artistic expression. And when it comes to things of beauty, it's like, it's not about simply making a connection and then moving on. It's about contemplating.
You need to soak.
You need to soak in it. Yeah. So I was like, I was like, avoid the temptation of the ×2 speed. Like avoid the temptation of flying through this thing and go slow. Like when she describes like the lunch scene. It's
the
like,
lunch scene, like the food, like the point was the food, like that. She had 2 different, I think it was a lunch and a dinner, but 2 different meal scenes where she describes the difference of the meal at the men's college or wherever she was, the seminar that was being held. And it was like so delicious and like the aroma of it and like the every part of the dish she described, and it was just like immaculate. It was so good. It was worth describing. And then she goes back to, I don't even remember where. I don't remember if it was the women's college or her home. Or
the settings
like
are
that.
all fictional. So
yeah,
they're all
yeah.
places, but
But it was to the meal that she had later amongst just the women. It was like bland fish and like unseasoned potatoes or something like that. And it was just like, whatever, not really. And the way she describes it too is like the way she even just like puts it in almost stanza of like different lines. They're like very, everything's a period, everything's a short sentence, everything's very dryly written.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
There's a contrast.
I love when,
yeah, it was so good. It was so good.
It's like the difference between writing to just share information, which is what she did about the poor dinner. So it's like it's a weak or it's a sad dinner, and she's writing just to communicate information.
Yep.
And then for the dinner, the lunch that was like, you're not eating just to get full.
Yeah.
You're eating because there's so much beauty and there's so much
like more
artistic expression.
To represent it.
Yep.
So aside, just for a second, Lin-Manuel Miranda did that with Hamilton. So you'll notice if you like listen to Hamilton through, like listen with us. So Thomas Jefferson, he writes his lines really slow.
Oh.
Sounding.
Yeah.
Because he's trying to communicate like he's behind the times.
Yeah.
And
that's funny.
And then Hamilton's are always like quick and like
quick-witted, quick, fast.
Cool.
Yeah.
And George Washington's are always like powerful and
Whoa.
so he like literally wrote in a way that like communicated that as
Isn't
they were.
amazing?
Isn't that crazy?
Oh.
Like each character has a different like tempo.
That is wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Shakespeare would do that too with whenever you would have like the more proper civil class or the more like, proper social class would always speak in iambic pentameter, and then the impoverished people would speak with no rhyme and meter.
Whoa.
It would just be loose speech.
Wow.
That's wild.
That is wild.
I love that.
It's like how the form of the expression matches the content of the expression. You can marry the two together and you can see it in like a 3D. It's like it's not just surface level, like this is cool. It's like this is deep and wide.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So the pentameter, iambic pentameter, for those that's like, what the heck is that word? It's a form of speech pattern and / writing pattern in poetry, and it's like how you write the verse and how many like syllables fall into a specific verse and like where you hit each one, how many words, like like the ABCD or ABAB, whatever that is. The rhyming pattern as well, the meter for it. Yeah. So, but yeah, we talked a lot about that in poetry.
Yeah. and with the idea of where your content and your form come together. Right? So like the rules of poetry are amazing because you set these rules out and everyone follows the rules. So if you have a poem that's an iambic pentameter, it could be like da 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 da, and there's thousands and thousands of poems that follow strictly to the rules. But then you can make a point by breaking the rules. Yeah. And if your audience knows to look for it, you can break the rule on a line that also is supposed to make a point. That's in some way breaking a rule. So it's like It's like with like sports or anything where you establish rules.
Yeah.
You establish rules, and then the greats, the masters,
Yeah.
know how to break them
Yeah.
with so much
Excellence.
excellence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I feel like the Crane poem did that. War is kind.
Yeah.
'Cause it was
it's so
like-
good.
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about this.
We gotta talk
I
about
heard
this.
a lot about the War's Kind poem.
Yeah.
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 Should we read it? We should read it. It's not very long.
One of the poems, I thought this was super interesting. In our readings, it's the only place I've found that specific version of the poem. And there are several different ones, and each different version kind of changes the meaning.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
The
Of
Dickinson
War's
one.
Kind.
Yeah, the Dickinson.
it's
No,
Emily
the Dickinson
Dickinson,
one.
yeah. Oh, okay.
It was so. I mean, I prefer the one in our readings more than all the other versions that I saw because something about it was just like kind of left flat. It took away some of the depth. It was very interesting. Yeah, they edited it for some reason later
She
on.
only published 11 poems in her whole life. So,
Yeah.
Or I think it's 11. It's a 2-digit number, very small. It's on the short end of
And
Wow.
the
Wait.
rest were her.
were unpublished,
Yeah,
unfinished. So
uh-huh.
a lot of editing and a lot of commentaries been made.
I thought War's Kind was Crane.
It is.
Well, yeah, it is Crane.
Oh, okay.
I think we
I
rabbit
mentioned
trailed
the.
really quickly.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
Yeah.
okay. I was like, I'm lost.
I saw that one and was
Okay.
like, oh yeah. one
Oh,
of them.
tracking. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, War's
So,
Kind.
War's
Stephen
Kind.
Crane,
Here.
By Stephen
the
Crane.
guy that wrote The Red Badge of Courage.
Yes.
He was.
Whoa,
he
that's
was-
the guy?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
He was a. I don't know if journalist is the right word during the American Revolution,
Wow.
but he didn't fight in the Revolution, but he was in the army.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's so interesting.
observing and
Yeah.
writing.
Wow.
Yeah, this was written in 1899.
Probably the Civil War then. Civil War.
You said 1899.
At least,
Oh.
or published. It has 1899
Maybe it's
on
the
the
Civil
screen.
War. I thought it was.
I did think Red Badge was a Civil War.
Okay, it's Civil War then.
Nice. Okay. Do not
I'm
weep.
glad you caught that and not our online audience. Sorry.
They would have thrashed us in the comments.
Sorry.
Look, what's wrong with- yeah, that's true. They would have probably would have been your students too. Anyway,
The more you know, the more you don't. The
true.
more you know, you don't know.
do not weep, maiden, for war is kind, because your lover threw wild hands toward the sky, and the affrighted steed ran on alone. Do not weep, war is kind. Hoarse, booming drums of the regiment, little souls who thirst for fight. These men were born to drill and die. The unexplained glory flies above them. Great is the battle god, great and his kingdom, a field where 1,000 corpses lie. Do not weep, babe, for war is kind, because your father tumbled in the yellow trenches, raged at his breast, gulped and died. Do not weep, war is kind. Swift blazing flag of the regiment, eagle with crest of red and gold, these men were born to drill and die. Point for them the virtue of slaughter, make plain to them the excellence of killing, and a field where 1,000 corpses lie. Mother, whose heart hung humble as a button, on the bright, splendid shroud of your son, do not weep, war is kind. By Stephen Crane.
Wow.
Yeah, great poem.
Yeah.
There's no, it left me feeling very like, initial feeling, felt very bitter reading it.
Cynical even.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very like, dang, like this man is so like hurt and has seen like the rages of war and seen the effects of it, and it's just like, my initial thought was, his point is the only kind thing about war is death.
Yeah.
And like that's the only certain thing. And one thing that I thought was so excellently done, there were two things. It was so excellently done. And it's about, one of them is about what's not there. And that one is the last stanza talking about the son who dies is shorter by one line than all of the rest.
Huh.
And I was like,
Whoa.
dang, to me, that's
Wow.
a total picture of like youth,
Yeah.
a youth's life cut
Wow.
way too short.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
So good. And then the other thing was it's a total free verse. There's no real like rhyming pattern at all. But the one word that Crane chooses to rhyme with is die. And it's like, to me, that was a picture
Wow.
of like,
Wow.
this is the one constant thing in war is like, this is the one thing you can expect. This is the one thing that you can
Wow.
count on seeing over and over and over again. It's the only reliable thing. And it's death. And it's that people will die. And
Wow.
I didn't pick up on that. That die is the only word rhymed with.
yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah,
I didn't either.
Because a rhyming, like to rhyme is relation between two words, is to connect
yeah.
And if we can connect or relate to anything, all human beings, it's death.
Wow.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah. So interesting, just because Charity like showed it to me before she gave it to the class, and it's like because you grow up like even as like a boy growing up, you're like pop, 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 pop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like glorify it, like there's glory in war, and like his whole thing is like, no,
There's nothing.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think him using satire to like make is that satire or
It is. It's a satirical work.
yeah, to like make his point. Because even we had students that read it that were like,
Yeah, war,
glory.
like
And I'm
honor.
like, no, like he's missing his
The whole point.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's so ingrained. It's like you have to find a back door to the imagination to really get at like, whoa, this is what he's trying,
Yeah.
like, whoa, this is what that is. I remember actually, I always remember those little things that are like the back door to your imagination type things.
Wow.
So like in The Free State of Jones with Matthew McConaughey, this took place in the Civil War, and it was about this county, I think it was in Alabama or Mississippi, that refused to join the Confederacy. Like this whole county that was like, we're not down.
Dang.
But it was Matthew McConaughey was previously in the war and saw like one of his friends get killed like in the trench, and another guy was like, he died with honor, and Matthew McConaughey was like, nope, he just died.
Yeah.
And then that kind of spurred him on to like essentially like making this county like the Free State of Jones.
Wow.
Dang.
Like, we're not fighting in your war,
Wow. Yeah.
And what you can think whatever about his political ideations, and,
Right.
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. But the point that was being made was like, no, like this is not. Like, what was the point of this?
Yeah.
It's like when suffering has meaning in it, you can go 1,000 miles.
Yeah.
But if it's meaningless, in other words, like what's the purpose of you could even use the word propaganda around trying to create, I don't know, is it natural for us to think that dying in battle is honorable? Or is that an unnatural thing that we've adopted?
That's a great question.
And because in my mind, I think of suffering is part of life.
Yeah.
Suffering will come. Like you don't have to look for it. You don't have to conjure it up. It'll find you. It's part of it. It's like, and not all of it's bad. It's, it's often an opportunity to grow. And, but as long as there's meaning in it, you know what I mean? Like as long as it's fueled with meaning, it's like woven, as long as meaning is woven into the fabric of suffering, we can endure it and say it's even not our enemy, but it's an adversary that brings us, higher, and it's a good thing. But meaningless suffering, like meaning, like total suffering devoid of all meaning, is, hell. Like it's actual hell. That's probably even my best definition for hell is like meaningless suffering. Has no point, has no end, has no redemption, has no. It's like things that people can't experience, I even think, on earth today. But it's like this idea of like, well, war is, awful, terrible. It is in many ways hell. Like, but if there's meaning woven into it, like we can endure it.
Yeah.
Wow, the AC just blew your meaning out.
I think it was the net crack and the AC mixed.
That's hilarious.
I don't know. It's just some thoughts. I don't have a conclusion on it yet, but at least I think it makes a little bit more sense of Crane's poem. He's kind of cutting through the fog and saying,
Here's another perspective.
Well, I think it shows the power of like literary art,
Right.
Because you got to think. So I mean, I grew up with like Toby Keith, like I'm an American soldier.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like I think when and I'm literally not saying this in a cynical way, so don't take it that way, but like when a ruler or a politician or somebody, like when they want to go for a cause, like the first thing they do is like we got to get the artist on board.
Oh,
we got to get the writers with us because they got to inspire.
That is true.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that cynically. That can either be used in a good way or
Not so great.
not so good way.
Yep.
But I think literature has that back door to the imagination power of like inspiring.
Yeah.
And you can just even music that we listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too, it's like I think it was challenging for a lot of people because it challenged presuppositions and beliefs that they have of like good things, but things that maybe had never been challenged before because they grew up in a certain context and in a certain environment that was like fed and encouraged.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not necessarily even a bad narrative, but even to just have another perspective offered can be really, really challenging and really, really humbling if you let it. And I think that's ultimately like literature as a whole, because it offers a window to look through that is not your own.
Yeah.
If people allow it, it will humble you.
Yeah.
And also like broaden your perspective.
And shape you.
Yeah.
Like something I love about the Bible Project, they talk about a lot about like the Bible is meditation literature. And so it's like, I need to come to this thing and like just with a hot cup of tea and sit here and like let it shape me, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of like trying to pick it apart and like, what's it, you know, just like, what is this thing doing to me? You know? It's like reading, like you read it, but it reads you type thing.
Yeah.
There's a great, I'll make this point and then I'll maybe go back to what I said earlier because I'm still thinking about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But with just that thing of the Bible being meditation literature, this guy named Rudyard Scruton, he's like a British philosopher. He just died recently, but he has a great quote where he's like, you know, when we encounter an idea or a thing, he's like, we can do three things to it. We can understand it, or we can fight to understand it, which would be like the realm of science. Explain it or understand it. We can use it, which is like kind of the world of utility and maybe like economics. And then he said the third category, which is in a sense unrelated to the other two, is we can contemplate it, which has to do with beauty.
Yeah.
And it's not understanding it in a sense, and it's also not using it. There's no end to it
Wow.
other than beauty itself. Beauty's the end.
Yeah.
And it does have an effect on you, and it has effect on your soul and like your inner man. Like it does feed you because we're created with an appetite for beauty.
Wow.
But it doesn't fulfill the other needs of explanation or usefulness. It's just like there's a contemplation that happens when we encounter really beautiful things, or like the Bible, like truly deep and meaning-filled, meaning-inspired things. That if we're not feeding that part of ourselves, we might be at risk.
With just kind of, I know you want to go back to the other thing, but just on that point before you leave it, like C.S. Lewis has this line. He said, like, we murder when we dissect.
Ooh.
Wow.
And the whole thought, like, so for us here, we teach critical thinking. I mean, we literally teach you how to take apart an argument and like find every little piece of it.
Yep.
And which I think is a necessary skill and a really good skill that you need to use in certain aspects. But like, what if we don't need to use that in all types of literature?
Totally.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
What if the whole point of some literature, especially meditation literature, is tension?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's meant to be ambiguous.
Yeah.
And it's not meant to be simply explained and moved on.
Wow.
And I think that's actually the point of a lot of biblical narrative and a lot of like the biblical text.
Genesis.
Is that I reach this point where I'm like, wait, is it saying this?
Yeah.
Well, what about this?
Yeah.
And it's just like, yes. What you're
Yeah.
feeling right now is what the author's going for.
Yeah.
And the danger, and this is kind of going on a rabbit trail, but like the danger of some commentaries is commentaries often seek to disambiguate a text which is intentionally ambiguous.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And like where's the Spirit of God in this idea of just like, oh, I understand, now I can move on.
Yeah.
Versus like
Wow.
I mean, in the wrestle is where Jacob becomes Israel.
Yeah.
It's like, what if the whole text is setting us up for a wrestle where we can actually encounter God's Spirit and then become.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That is so good.
Yeah.
That is so good.
The rabbis talk about the like biblical literature as like a diamond.
Yeah.
And you just keep
I
turning it and seeing
love
it from
that.
different angles, and the light hits it, and you see it this way, and then but you like there's an infinite way of.
Yeah,
seeing. And that's not like
facets.
some kind of like relativistic way
No.
of thing. It's like like it's
Diamond is a diamond, but
it's created to like work on you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gosh.
My last point, I want to just be fair to the,
yeah.
because I just thought we should rewind to it, because just thinking of all those that actually have gone and served and died in the service of our country, and I don't think so. Crane's making a point to say war is kind, which I think is it should be abrasive, and we're like, it's kind. No, I mean, even death is death. It's not kind. Death is not like life's the point. Death's not the point. If death is a point, then war is kind. But even the point of like the meaningless nature to suffering, I wanted to just like, because you think of the narrator, if he's trying to say like, hey, there is meaning to your suffering. You know, you lost so and so, but there's meaning to your suffering. You can almost sympathize with them and saying like, oh, that is actually a just thing to do. to say he didn't die for no reason. I don't know. Because we read the Stephen Crane poem in contrast with Emily Dickinson's
because of death.
Yeah, because
Okay,
death
so I
would not
missed
stop for
this
me.
one.
Oh, it's good.
We read the two different poems on
really
the same
good.
day, and I
Yeah.
remember facilitating that conversation, and I was like, why do you think that these two poems are chosen for the same day? You know, different authors from different time periods, but they both have this subject of death in mind.
Yeah. And Dickinson's death is personified.
Yeah.
It's really cool, actually.
Oh.
It's an interesting interplay, and I don't know if we have time to go into it totally in the podcast, but I think the takeaway from my group was that good art can console us in our suffering. It consoles us in our suffering, and it affirms us in our joy. I think that was like the big takeaway from the literature module and the art module in general. Like good art has the possibility to, you can encounter the transcendent through good art. It's not just I'm having an imminent temporal experience.
Yeah.
Good art is a window into a transcendent reality above and beyond anything finite.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the thing that and what contemplation can do is it can affirm me in my joy, and it can console me in my suffering and sorrow.
Wow.
And I think that's the point of the like the Stephen Crane poem. It is satire, but I think there is something there too, where there is a real consolation in sorrow.
Yeah.
For those that have lost loved ones.
Yeah, no, I think
in the
that's
pursuit
good.
of pursuit of freedom
Yeah.
and securing it.
Yeah. No, it's important. Well, that shows the point of like, I think through a lot of things, you can, like the diamond analogy, you can see a lot of different, like there's probably layers of what he's doing there.
Yeah.
I heard, I can't remember who said this. They're like, poetry was intended to heal the wounds inflicted by reason.
Oh, that's
And-
good.
That whole just like, him writing a hit piece on like, Morris, not good because of this, and this. Like, no one's reading that. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you've lost a kid.
Yeah.
But maybe a mom that loses her son is reading that. And it's like it's moving her.
Well, I think
comforting,
it's like the power of acknowledgement, right? Like maybe he's not even, I don't know his political aspirations or whatever, but like maybe the point wasn't, I didn't view it as this of like the point wasn't trying to get people to not participate in war, but like be like, not be part of it and not make war, but it was more so an acknowledgement of like, hey, especially today, have heard people who have suffered loss of like, people keep telling them like they're in a better place, or like they died with so much strength, or they were so like courageous, blah, blah, blah. And it's like in the moment, that's not very helpful.
Yeah.
Like the platitudes are not consoling. They're not comforting in moments of grief. What is comforting is acknowledging.
Like, let's be sober about this.
Yeah, and like being like, this sucks. Like you suffered loss. It doesn't feel honorable. It doesn't feel dignified. This is what it looked like.
Yeah.
Let's acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Which even the point you made earlier, where it's like every single stanza had certain number of
Lines.
and then the final one, which is in reference to the youth or the young man that's like life is cut short,
Yeah.
is shorter than the others. I think, if anything, that's Crane like appealing to their sorrow.
Yeah.
I'm saying like,
Yeah.
not right.
Yeah.
Literature.
It's an amazing module. It's kind of funny every time we do it, it's like you do 10 modules of, I don't know if the right word is more analytical.
Reason-based.
Reason-based,
Yeah.
understanding. I guess maybe in the Roger Scruton, three-tiered paradigm of like to understand a thing, to use a thing, and then to contemplate a thing. It's like we spend a lot of time in understanding.
Yeah.
And then the implications or the usefulness or the utility element. And then we get into literature and art, and it's all about contemplation. It's like engaging a new side of our...
What a great way to finish.
Yeah, no kidding.
Dang,
Yeah. Kind of teaches you to slow down after like going for so long.
Yeah.
Picking apart, and then it's like, okay, now you get beauty. What are you going to do with it? Yeah. It's cool.
Amen.
Amen. Well, we didn't even get to Dorian Gray.
No, we didn't.
But that's okay.
But it's a good read. It's a challenging read.
Yeah.
Just read it.
Yeah. So, thanks for joining us, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Cass.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, have a great Christmas.
Sweet.
Safe trip home.
Merry Christmas.
And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us on another episode.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we said, we're recording this right before Christmas. You probably won't hear this till after, but we hope you guys had a great Christmas.
Yeah.
I right now hope you have a great Christmas, but when you're hearing this, I hope you had a great Christmas.
There you go.
Is that how prayer works too?
Yeah.
Wow.
Forwards and backwards.
So yeah, bless you guys so much. Yeah, we just speak life and joy and peace over your families. And we'll catch you next time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So.